Mix in the Dark.
Hey, what's up? It's MaiYang from Mix in the Dark. Thanks for listening to my personal story so far. I feel like it's such a boring story, but like I said, it's just a way for me to process and to remember the events that took place around the time of my mom's death. Either way, after this, it's back to stories from you all. And speaking of, I am in need of stories. Remember, I started Mix in the Dark in search of the most scary story, and sorry to say, but I have not found one that really creeps me out yet. There are several really good ones that I've already told, but they just have not scared me. When choosing stories, I tend to stay away from sleep paralysis stories or stories that are dream-based, and it's mainly because I just have way too many of those. I also tend to release longer stories a lot faster than I do for shorter stories, and by longer stories, I'm talking 7+ pages, size 12 font, no double space, you know. I feel like a high school teacher right there, but you get the idea. Just longer. I tend to take longer to release the shorter stories because it's just too short to make into a full episode. So what ends up happening is I wait for similar stories so that I can group them, and that can take a really long time. If you have sent me stories so far, I thank you so much. You have made my life and other people's lives so much more interesting. Anyway, you can send stories to myxinthedark@gmail.com. So that's mix as in MYX in the dark @gmail.com. Thanks again. Please take a listen to the last little bit of my personal story. There's not a lot left. Enjoy. The funeral day slowly approached us. The day before the funeral, we received a call from the cemetery managers and gravediggers that the plot of land we were going to place my mom was not going to be big enough for her coffin. They were digging the space for my mom and they ran into some underground pipes. This plot of land was next to my dad's mom. This was where he wanted my mom to be placed. All of the siblings were stressed over this because the funeral was going to happen the next day. My older sister called different places and finally found a plot of land that happened to be fairly close to the house. My dad is a very particular person and wanted things done a certain way. My sister and my dad would go in the morning to look at the plot of land for my mom. That same day, my mother-in-law called me. She asked if I was still having dreams about my mom. I told her yes. She then insisted that I do not attend my mom's funeral. This I could not do for her. I understood her worries, but this was my mom, and I wanted to make sure that I am there. Sometimes, when someone becomes extremely emotional and upset at the death of their loved ones, spirits at the funeral home may sense this and attempt to take their soul to be with their loved ones, because spirits see this as someone lonely and needing help. Although I refused to not go to the funeral, I opted to not go with my sisters to dress my mom for the funeral. I couldn't bring myself to her lifeless body because of what happened in that hospital room. I felt guilty that there was nothing I could do at the moment when she cried for my help. My mother-in-law understood, and she agreed with this decision. However, seeing that I was going to go to the funeral no matter what, my mother-in-law sent my husband and I to see their family shaman. She wanted to bless me before going to the funeral home. My husband and I went to his relative's house to do a blessing. The shaman cut a small piece of my hair and placed it in a small cup with water. He capped the cup with a red cloth, tied it, and told us to keep it flipped and placed in our bedroom under our bed. Morning came. This was also the day of the funeral. We kept our phones close by in case my sister needed us, since she was scouting a piece of land for my mom. She entered the funeral home mid-morning with my dad. There was this glow to her face like she was at peace with what they found. She told us that the plot of land that became available to us is directly next to my mom's dad. I'm talking directly one headstone over. Here's a side family note for you. My dad's mom had never liked my mom because she was not the wife that my dad's mom wanted or chose. It was curious that the plot of land next to my dad's mom did not work out, but a plot of land next to my mom's dad became available and unclaimed even after all this time. Call it fate, call it coincidence, but I believe something higher than us happened there. During this time, all of my nieces and nephews from Colorado were staying at my place. I set up blow-up beds in the living room area for them. I've explained this in a few of my informal conversations with my friends, but I have this couch that I call my haunted couch. And it wasn't just anywhere on that couch, there was a very specific spot that I called haunted. It needed to be the side where it aligned to our front door and our back door. The haunted couch was more a joke than anything. It was just that I kept experiencing things on it, and so for that reason, I called it haunted. Hmong folks believe that when a front door and back door are lined up to each other, it creates this path where spirits can enter. It also pushes in all kinds of energy, both negative and positive. Our couch is in such a position where it is lined up to our doors, and it creates this back hallway. So if you were to walk through the front door and just walk straight, you'd be able to make it through the whole house, including making to the back door. My nephew is around 21 years old. He listens to my stories because he finds the paranormal to be very intriguing. He's also had his share of odd occurrences happening to him. That night, he told me that he wanted to try out my haunted couch. He was going to sleep on the side where I usually had my nightmares. I told him that he shouldn't because we are in the middle of operating a funeral, but if he really insisted and wanted to see how the couch really was, then go for it. When morning came, he didn't say anything to us, so I assumed he didn't experience anything. The funeral went smoothly. I cried my eyes out when my mom's special dinner came because I knew that it was the last meal before finally laying her to rest. She loved eating everything and enjoyed trying different tastes. Her favorite things were steamed fish, stir-fried shrimp, spicy papaya, and steamed vegetables. Burial morning came, and it was the coldest day ever. There was a snowstorm that slowed everyone down trying to get to the gravesite. Our police escort to the gravesite didn't even happen because they were concerned about safety. People from out of town also got lost on the way because we were literally blinded by the thick falling snow. What should have been a 15-minute drive turned into an hour. At the burial site, we watched the men carry my mom's casket to its area. There were disagreements between where to face my mom. Some relatives wanted to face my mom toward the sunrise, but it would mean that her head would be toward the road. My dad wanted to face the casket the opposite. He said it was more proper to face her head away from the road. I don't know the significance of any of this and if there's even a difference in how a casket is faced, but eventually everyone proceeded with my dad's opinion. After this, I took all of my nieces and nephews back to our place to take naps before dinner. This was when we learned from my nephew his experience on the haunted couch. He explained that during the middle of the night, he heard coins jingling by the front door. Just for context for folks who may not know, Hmong traditional clothing has coins sewn on. Whenever you move, you'd hear the coins tap against each other, making that jingling sound. Anyway, he knew immediately that no one in the house would be wearing Hmong clothes at that time of night. Then, he heard the sound of a qing playing. The qing is a Hmong bamboo instrument that is used during the New Year's or the funeral. All of a sudden, it was like his third eye opened. He could see who was at the door. It was an old lady dressed in traditional Hmong white clothing. To make it even worse, he heard the entity jump. He explained that he heard the coins jingle and footsteps jumping from side to side along with the qing playing as if it was performing. The qing player came through the hallway behind the couch. It then turned the corner and stood playing the qing right behind him by his head. My nephew explained that he didn't know how he did it, but eventually he forced himself to fall asleep because he was so scared. 2 months after burying my mom, I started to have these weird dreams about her. But the thing was that it wasn't my mom. It was what my mom looked like on her deathbed, but still roaming around as if she were alive. The other thing about these dreams is that I seemed to be the only one in my dreams that understood that she was dead, and also that she was not actually my mom, even though she presented herself in that way. I call her my imposter mom. I actually explained this part of my life in detail in one of my episodes called I'll Be Back, so I won't go into much detail. If you're interested for context, you should listen to that episode. Anyway, the short version of it was that one night, I decided within myself that I was going to challenge my imposter mom. I'm one of those weirdos that can control my dreams. I can think for myself, I can strategize, I can change the characters or story. Basically, I can control what goes on in my dream. The imposter mom was the one part of the equation in my dream that I was unable to control. It was like she was in my head, influencing everything in my dream to make me believe that she is my mom. That night, I actually told myself that if I dream of the imposter mom, I'm going to tell her how it is and that I was not going to let her run my mind. That night, she came into my dreams like she heard me. In that dream, my family and I were in the living room of my childhood home. I remember watching the doorway. Usually in my dreams that feel eerie, something would pop out of that hallway, and that hallway led to my grandma and my parents' room. Sure enough, the imposter mom appeared from my parents' bedroom and walked out to the living room. She looked straight at me, offering a hug. At first, I wanted to, but then I remembered that my mom was already gone, so instead, I walked up to her and started accusing her of being fake. One by one, I talked to each family member, letting them know that she was a fake and to not believe her lies. I said out loud in my dreams that I knew she was a dark entity that had taken over my dreams, and that no matter what, I was going to research and investigate and figure out how to get rid of her. Right after saying this, it seems everybody stood frozen in time except the imposter mom. She slowly turned toward me and grinned a slow, wide grin. Her eyes started to slant to an evil-looking demon and her cheeks grew. Then she just slowly disappeared. I woke up shaken but proud of myself. One thing that I couldn't stop thinking about was that I have seen this grin before. It wasn't until recently, when I started to connect the dots as I am writing this out, that I realized where I've seen this cold grin. This grin belonged to the woman that I saw in my dreams about half a year ago. She was bothering my son. I mentioned her in part 1 of this series. She scared him awake each night, and he would complain of someone pinching him. She gave me this grin when I confronted her in my dreams to leave my son and my family alone. This same grin appeared on the imposter mom, which leads me to believe that they are the same entity. It's a curious situation because something similar happened to my son in 2024, 2 years after telling off this entity that had appeared twice now in separate parts of my life. Last year, October of 2024, I started to write about all of these strange things that happened while my mom was sick and passing. That month, we also happened to travel to Colorado. My son would have been 3 years old. We opted to drive to Colorado because we generally enjoyed long road trips. When we got to Colorado, we stayed at my sister's house. My sister actually lives somewhere else. She rents out her house to her kids to teach them responsibility. Upon getting to the house, my son developed a fever, so we stayed in that night. He slept most of the day. I made dinner for my nieces that night. I came over to sit with my son so that I could feed him, when all of a sudden he woke up and started crying hysterically and pointing to the far corner of the living room. I watched for a few seconds, wondering what was going on. Then he shouted, "Who's that person right there? Why is she looking at me? She's smiling. Why is she looking at me?" I glanced at the corner. There was no one near that corner at all. This spooked me, so I grabbed him, shielded his eyes, and whispered under my breath that whatever was doing this to him needed to stop and go away. Eventually, he calmed down after we moved to a different part of the house. That night, my husband and I talked privately. I told him that this situation happened before. When he was 2, he would wake up in the middle of the night crying and screaming, complaining about a girl bothering him, and then he would get fevers. To me, it was just too much of a strange coincidence to not make note of it. If you step back and look at the different things that have happened to me in just a span of 3 years, they seem to connect. My mom was followed by a ghost girl from the gardens. My brother sights a ghost girl walking in the halls of their house. I visit with my son. We go home. I hear someone say hi to me. I answer back. My son starts getting woken up in the middle of the night. I start to dream of this ghost girl in the form of my dead mom. My son complains of seeing a ghost girl in Colorado. I'm more of a skeptic than I am of a believer of the paranormal. I try to make sense of these things scientifically first before I give up and conclude that it is something I cannot explain. These coincidences are just that. It's something I cannot explain. Someone could literally make a Netflix series out of this. That's how close these happenings are. It's a series of stories connected to each other, not isolated stories. So, I took a pause from telling scary stories. I was just tired of it, and I did it for my sanity. I finally finished writing not too long ago before releasing this series, and my mom is already back in my dreams. I haven't figured out if it's just me writing about her and missing her that she appeared again in my dreams after a year of not dreaming about her, or that I've invited Imposter Mom back into my life with these stories. Anyway, I know one thing for certain. I'm sure out there somewhere, my mom thinks of us siblings. Every family gathering so far, Christmas, Thanksgiving, or New Year's, a little white moth would find its way into the party. My mom was hardworking, caring, and selfless. To others, she is 年代学长 or the kind-hearted grandma. But to me, she is my inspiration and hero. I'd like to think that the moth is a sign that my mom is still around.
Cô luôn bê hoa xử lý nè, cô tại vì nó cô tuần sai tua đồ hồ đã đào thảo nó ở nhà hồ sinh phao nè, cô luôn nói nhiều cái cô chỉ bao lại đấy chỉ cô yêu lúc cầu li hoàn thị chua ý chế cho bò, cô luôn năng về thấu nhau để chờ bò. Cô chỉ bao đào chỉ bao lù chỉ bao đã chỉ để cho nhau thì cỡ thì mua liệu tê yêu tê mình tụi mình nhỏ sửa sẽ tê mình nhỏ bỏ mua đã chỉ ba giỏ gọi là lót thầu bé tôi yêu không có xa thì cho tê mình nhỏ tôi cần thở cho tôi bao lù nó chỉ cô rong lợn tàu thia cô chia sẻ cho cô cho mình nhọ cô lô bà cô muốn tàu thia đó thì cô để thả lên nó sẽ làm mà.
Thank you for listening to Mix in the Dark. I am your host, MaiYang. Mix in the Dark is available on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast series. If you have a story that you would like to share, please send it to myxinthedark@gmail.com. If there's a story that you really enjoyed, feel free to hit up my tip jar on Venmo. Just search Mix in the Dark on the business tab.